everybody, my name is Joe Robinson, and this video is for those who are brand new to playing the guitar. You can think of this as your first guitar lesson. Although in this video I'm going to cover the things that are important considerations before we actually get into learning chords and things. I'll talk about what kind of guitar I feel is best for learning to play on. I'll talk about whether you need a guitar teacher when you're beginning or whether you can just learn on YouTube or online with courses and things like that. I'll discuss how much practice I feel is ideal for someone who's just beginning to play. I'll also show you how to tune your guitar, which is very important, how to hold the guitar, and a few other points that I feel are important. I'll try to be as brief and as to the point as I can. In the next video in this playlist, I'll show you some chords and we'll get to playing some songs really quickly. But to begin with, what kind of guitar is best for learning? Well, if you don't have a guitar, a great suggestion that I'd like to share with you is using a 3/4 size nylon string guitar for the first stage of your learning journey. Now, nylon string guitars, also called classical guitars, have softer strings and they're just a little easier on the fingers than a steel string guitar. And nylon strings have a really warm tone. I think even inexpensive nylon string guitars sound great. With steel string guitars, the cheaper guitars sometimes can sound a little bit thin, I feel. But whatever instrument you have is going to be just fine. The thing is, it's quite important that your guitar is set up to be easy to play. So no matter whether you're learning on an electric guitar, acoustic guitar, classical guitar, steel string, if the action is too high, meaning the strings are really high from the fingerboard, and you have to press down with the left hand with a lot of pressure to get the string to hit the fret, then that is going to make things quite difficult for you. So what I'd recommend is taking your instrument to your local guitar shop, music shop, and having them perform a setup on your guitar. They're going to know exactly what to do. They'll adjust the nut and the bridge and maybe the neck relief so that your guitar is very easy to play. This is such an important point because many newer guitars, many cheaper guitars that you might learn on, they really could use a setup. And I would say that a $150 guitar that's set up nicely is going to be much easier to play than a $5,000 guitar that's not set up correctly. So the setup is so important. And that 3/4 size nylon string that I suggest checking out, those cost $150 thereabouts. That's what I learned to play on. And if you're a young person or a regular sized person, I think that size guitar is going to be just fine for you because the classical necks are a bit wider than like the neck on an electric guitar or a steel string acoustic, but the 3/4 sized classical guitars have a neck that is about the same size as a steel string or an electric guitar. If you're a large 6-foot tall man with really chunky fingers, then you'll probably want a full-size classical guitar if you go that route. But for most people, I feel like that 3/4 size nylon string guitar is a good starting place. But like I said, whatever guitar you have, I'm sure that's going to be just fine. The thing is, you really want to make sure it's set up to be easy to play. And it's great to have a rapport with your local music store where you can go in and talk to somebody, have them look at your guitar and have them tell you whether it needs a little bit of a tweak or whether it's just fine. But like I said, if the strings are too high from the frets and the fingerboard, then you're going to struggle. So the frets are these metal things that go up, up the guitar neck, metal things. And the neck is this part of the guitar. The body is this part of the guitar. You can think of it like a person. That's the body, the neck, big long neck, and this is called the headstock. So there you go, there's some terminology for you. So do you need a guitar teacher? Now, I personally feel that there is absolutely no substitute for having in-person lessons, especially when you're first starting to play. An in-person teacher can look at the way you're playing a chord, make a suggestion based on the way you're doing things. It can just be much easier. It's easier. We learn kind of by mimicking other people. And so if you see somebody playing in person, it's just that much easier to pick it up. However, We live in an amazing time where there's so many online resources, and what I'd encourage you to do is take initiative for your own learning. So what I used to do, and what I highly recommend, is take lessons with an in-person teacher when you first are beginning to play, but also supplement those lessons with things that you learn online by yourself. What I used to do is I'd turn up to my guitar lesson and I'd say to my guitar teacher, check out this tune that I learned to play all by my own, all by myself, I should say. And I'd play him something and he'd show me a song or an exercise which was that week's lesson. And then the next week I'd come back and I'd show him something different, and it became this back and forth where I'd show him something, he'd show me something, and it was really great. And I learned quicker, and it was kind of this way of challenging myself to not only do the homework that I was given, but go beyond it. So that's a great way to think about online learning, I think, is it's an amazing tool. I highly recommend online guitar courses. I create a lot of guitar courses. I've learned so much from instructional music videos. That's basically how I learned to play more advanced styles. But like I said, for beginning to play, I feel like there's no substitute for having an in-person teacher. You certainly can do it by yourself online. It's just, it's not quite as effective, I would say. And I would personally recommend avoiding apps that gamify playing the guitar. There are certain apps that look a lot like Guitar Hero, the video game, where the frets are being hit and you're kind of like trying to keep up with this video game-like thing. I think that's ineffective, and I much prefer a more traditional way of learning the guitar, where you learn chords, you learn songs, you learn some strumming patterns, and go about it that way. So hopefully that made sense. Let's talk about how much practice is needed if you're a beginner. Now, I hope this is reassuring to you. I really feel that small, bite-sized chunks of practice are much more effective than spending large amounts of time practicing the guitar. If we're just intentional about what we're playing and we're pretty consistent with how much we do it, if you can show up for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, a few times a week, that's enough to make really amazing progress over the weeks and weeks. I really think it's good to give yourself a good amount of time, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks of fairly consistent chipping away at it, learning a little bit each time you sit down with the guitar, and practicing intentionally with those short, focused, bite-sized sessions. Then you're going to really give yourself a chance to see what you're capable of, and you're going to experience all the benefits of playing music. There's so many benefits. It's good for our mind, for our memory. It's good for our stress levels. It's good for a sense of connection, a sense of culture, and it's just a wonderful thing to carry with you through your whole life. Music is just such an amazing language. It's spoken all over the world. People enjoy music. Really, really amazing thing. So how much practice is needed? I would recommend small bite-sized chunks of practice, 15 to 20 minutes, 30 minutes if you'd like, but I wouldn't recommend sitting there for an hour each time you practice the guitar if you're totally new to it, because I think it's going to really take a while to develop the coordination with the hands, as well as the focus and the ability to concentrate for a good amount of time. So that's what I'd recommend with regard to how much to practice. So let's talk now about how to tune your guitar. So the guitar has 6 strings. It has the E string, the low E string that is, the A string, the D string, the G string, the B string, and the high E. And those are labeled from the thinnest string to the thickest string, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And a good way to remember the string names is with an acronym, because we do need to remember the names of the strings so we know which note to tune the strings to. Eddie, 8, dynamite, go, boom, Eddie. That's a fun little acronym. Eddie, 8, dynamite, go, boom, Eddie. By the way, I have a free PDF you can download with all the things I'm talking about written out so that you can see them with maybe a little more clarity, including that acronym written out. So download my free beginner guitar guide below. But that acronym once more is Eddie, 8, dynamite, go, boom, Eddie. Okay, so the first note, or the lowest string I should say, is E. So we're going to take an electronic tuner. I'd recommend using one of these. You can use a smartphone app. There's lots of free apps with guitar tuners that work just fine. Some people use a clip-on tuner. I prefer this old school standalone tuner. This is made by Korg, and they all work in a very similar way. They have a needle, whereas when the needle gets to the center, you usually get a green light, and that means the note is in tune. If the needle's over to the right a little bit, it's a little sharp. If it's to the left, it's a bit flat. So you want to try to get the needle in the middle. And here's the real key to tuning your guitar well, is tuning up to the note. So if my guitar, let's say my strings are a little flat, like I play the E string and the tuner's saying it's kind of E flat, I'm going to keep raising the pitch by turning the tuning key until that needle gets to be right in the middle, right about there. Now, if the note happens to be sharp, like let's say the A string is way sharp like that, sounds horrible. Instead of just tuning down to A and trying to find it, what you do is you tune below A and then back up to it. And it's just going to allow the guitar to hold tuning a little better. So that's a simple trick. What we want to do is we want to tune each note to the correct pitch. And the correct pitches are E, A, D, G, B, E. Eddie, 8, dynamite, go, boom, Eddie. And it really is worth memorizing those and practicing tuning your guitar. If it takes you 5 minutes to tune your guitar each time you pick it up, that's totally fine. It's really important for the guitar to be in tune, because otherwise everything you play is going to sound a bit off. So that's how to tune a guitar. First, learn the string names, use an electronic tuner, get the needle to be right in the center, and tune up to the note rather than down to the note. If you need to tune down, meaning your note is sharp, then tune below the pitch and then up to it. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions. So let's talk about how to hold the guitar. Now, there are basically two ways to approach holding the guitar. This way is the informal guitar position, where the guitar is on your right leg. The classical position is when the guitar is on your left leg, like that. And the classical position is a very specific way to play the guitar with a specific position of the left hand. I don't play with classical technique, and the vast majority of guitarists who are playing contemporary music don't play with a classical technique. So the way I'd recommend learning is with this informal technique. We're going to put the guitar on the right leg, and our left hand is going to kind of just sit on top of the guitar like that. We want to avoid excess tension. So if we have really tense shoulders, or if we're holding the guitar too tightly, that's what we want to avoid. We want everything to be nice and loose and relaxed, because that's what's going to give us nice technique. It's what's going to allow us to avoid straining our hands, having injuries. I also recommend stretching before we play. I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but I am going to type this out into a PDF so you can download and just kind of see it all written out and not forget any of it. But the stretches are basically just like stretching the palm back like that, stretching the palm down. Hold each stretch for about 10 seconds. Stretch the thumb back. We don't have to get too particular about this, but when we're first beginning, just doing a little bit of light stretching is a good idea. As you get into more advanced playing styles, stretching becomes more and more important, I feel. But with the left hand, you basically want to have the wrist be fairly neutral. You don't want the wrist to be bent like that, and you don't want anything to be overextended. You want it to just be fairly neutral. I'll go through more about where to position the hand when we start learning chords, but for the most part, you just want to balance the guitar on the right hand leg, on the right leg. If your guitar is kind of looking up at you like that, that's not going to be ideal, because with the left hand you'll have to arch the wrist a little too much, and it's just not ideal. So you want the guitar to be sitting pretty straight, yeah, perpendicular to your body. You want to sit up straight, and you want the guitar to be straight. And of course, just nice and loose, nice and relaxed way of playing. It doesn't need to be this exact position or that exact position with this informal approach to holding the guitar. You just want it to be comfortable, and you want to just give yourself an opportunity to get a feel for what feels good to you. I'd recommend using a pick when you're first learning to play. What happened to my pick? Where'd it go? I have a whole box of picks here. Any pick will do just fine. This pick doesn't have a label, so I don't know what it is. But a relatively thin, simple, standard pick is going to be just fine for learning to strum. Fingerstyle guitar is a way of playing where you use the right hand fingers to play rolls and things like that. That is a more advanced style. It's just a bit of a different way to approach the guitar. It's a beautiful style, and I have a course on beginner fingerstyle because that's a technique that I use a lot. However, when you're first learning to play, using a pick, learning some strumming patterns is what I would recommend. So any pick is going to be just fine, and I'll go through how to hold the pick when we start talking about strumming and whatnot. But I just wanted to make this short video to talk about these frequently asked questions about what kind of guitar is best for learning. I don't hear a lot of people talk about the importance of having a guitar that's set up to be easy to play, but I'm pretty convinced that that's the reason a lot of people give up playing, is if your instrument is one that you really have to fight, then it's going to make it that much more difficult. And I do think an in-person teacher is invaluable. If you can have weekly or bi-weekly lessons, there's nothing that can replace that. However, you can learn the information by yourself online, and you can definitely take advantage of all the great resources. YouTube can be really great. It can also be a bit of a rabbit hole where you just watch plenty of videos and kind of go around in circles. There's a lot of questionable information on YouTube as well, as you might expect. But having a person who you feel a connection with, you like the way they communicate, and you feel that they know what they're talking about, and they have the best intentions in wanting to help you, I feel that that's really what to look for. And like I said, small bite-sized chunks of practice time are what's going to allow you to get that sense of momentum. Because if you have some quick wins early on from focused short amounts of practice, I really think that's key to feeling that sense of momentum. And I would say that watching videos like this is not counted as practice. It's really important to digest the information and get the information, but ideally what I'd like you to do is watch a video like this, watch my next video, which will be about your first chords, learn the chords by watching the video a few times if you need to, and then set aside 15 minutes to just practice them and to really just drill the shapes. Repetition is the mother of skill. That's such a great phrase. Repetition is the mother of skill. We repeat the same chords over and over again to train our muscle memory to remember the shapes, remember the positions. And I really am constantly amazed at the power of the human body and the human brain to remember the things that we're going to practice over and over again. We can train our muscle memory. That's a big part of learning any instrument, and it's a big reason that this deliberate practice is so key. Short, bite-sized chunks of very repetitive, deliberate practice, maintaining a relaxed posture and trying to be as mindful and as aware of what you sound like, as well as what it feels like to play, being aware of any tension, etc. We've learned how to tune the guitar, how to hold the guitar, start with a pick. So without further ado, in the next video, I'll show you your first chords. Do let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Please subscribe to my channel if you're new here, and download my free beginner guitar guide if you haven't already. It's just a bit of an easier way to keep up with all the information I'm giving you. I hope you found this lesson to be helpful, and I hope you feel inspired to play the guitar, because guitar is an instrument that anybody and everybody can have a great time learning how to play. You can learn great songs. You can learn many of your favorite songs. And it's not going to take that long. It'll take a good amount of time, consistently showing up to play. It's a really wonderful investment in you being able to experience the joys of music, which is just such a blessing. So thanks very much for watching. And without further ado, in the next video, I'm going to show you your first chords.